Have you ever wondered what games you should keep or you should lose? Find out here at Purge Reviews. Have you ever wondered what games you should sell or you should use? Find out here at Purge Reviews. Find out on our top 10 list what games you cannot miss. Don't forget to subscribe to Purge Reviews.
Hagoth the Builder of Ships is a 2 to 4 player game where you're drawing cards and getting these wood to put on cards to build a ship to then sail it to another land. And then the ship will be returned to you. This is, I'm assuming, a Christian game. It's based on Christian doctrine, although you don't have to be a Christian to play it whatsoever. It also is a very simple little card game. There's not a whole lot to it. There is a lot of luck, or some luck, in what cards you draw. Now that's mitigated by you, instead of taking 2 actions per turn, which is playing 2 cards, you can just take the important actions just once. But if you do that too much, you're really going to fall behind. With that said, sometimes you must do that because you don't have the cards that you need to play. So it's a little bit of balancing there. If somebody got 2 cards to do whatever they wanted the entire game and you were doing 1 action per turn, you will lose the game. But while that's technically possible, that's highly unlikely and not very probable that would happen. Instead, what's going to happen is you both are going to need to take that single action from time to time. The components are pretty basic. The wood is nice. The cards are good. It's a very portable game, so you can take this with you. If you just bag it up, it takes no place at all in a suitcase. The game is okay. It's alright. You will play this out. I prefer it more as a 2-player game. It needs to move quickly. The decisions are not difficult. They're rather obvious. So if you're trying to build a big boat, you're kind of pressing your luck that you're going to get the cards that you need, I guess, or just hope of the lucky draw. There's no way to mitigate the building of the ship. So you're going to get these cards, and I'll show you the flow of the play. You're going to play these cards down, and they're going to build a ship. Now, you can do things like get wood, and you can do things like sail and push the game forward, but there's no way to mitigate whether you drew the right cards or not, especially if you're building the big ones, which score you a lot of points. But that's the risk you take, and that might be the game. So to complain about that is probably unfair. Fair enough. This isn't a game that's going to knock you off your socks. As a game based on a minor character in the Book of Mormon, it's interesting from that regard, but I'm not sure the theme is going to drive you mad with happiness or anything. You're not going to teach your kids about this historical figure through this game very much. He built a boat. That's where we sit. So it was kind of interesting that such a minor character would have a game to himself, but here we sit. Overall, the game is okay. I've had it in my collection for a while. I did a written review of it, and I ended up keeping it. I think I'm going to keep it because I am LDS. I think it's kind of interesting to have an actual game. It's an actual Christian game that there is a game in this box. This is a game, as opposed to a clone of another game or just garbage or trivia game. There is an actual game here that has some enjoyment to it. Hagoth is not going to knock your socks off, but it could be an enjoyable, quick 2-player game to play with your spouse, or if you want to play with more people. I think there are better 4-player games, but if you wanted something based on the scriptures, or you wanted something to pull that in, or just a 2-player card game with some extra components, I think this will fit the bill for you. You can get frustrated with the luck factor and not drawing what you want. You're rolling a 4-sided die, which I'm not a big fan of 4-sided dies, to get the wood. That's okay. It's just one of those games that It's a 5 or a 6, on a scale of 1 to 10. I don't usually do that in these reviews, but it's probably a 5 or a 6. So take that as you will. If you're interested in a Christian game, you may want to take another look at this because there's not a lot of those, and there actually is a game here. Maybe for a small 2-player game, this could almost be in the Cosmos line of 2-player games, like kind of those little neat games. But it's going to have the luck, and the draw of the cards is going to be very important. For me, for right now, I'm going to keep it mainly based on the theme, more so than the gameplay. Although it's a fine 2-player game to get out and play.
So this is Hagoth. It's a fairly portable game. Could fit in a suitcase pretty well, although it could have been a little bit smaller. Let's take a look at the components here. You are going to get a number of wood that you'll be using constantly. This is just little brown wooden markers. You're going to have ships in different colors. There's going to be 4 different colors, including blue. You are going to get little wooden scoring trackers that will be used. Pretty generic. And you're going to get a 4-sided die. Okay. You will get cards. Unfortunately, I got mine used and they come sleeved. I don't really like sleeved cards that much, but they have Hagoth on one side of all of them. And the cards, which are fairly good. Okay. We'll have different pictures on some of them. Some will have pieces of a boat, and you can fit them around. Most of the boat pieces can be used in different types of boats, which I'll show you here. This is the little portable board, but you can see you're building the boats in different combinations. Now, some pieces, like this middle piece, will only be used in this one, but you can kind of see this is the whole thing without this strip here, so they can be used for different things. And this is where you'll be going. It also comes with a rule book. Now, this is obviously a Mayday game, so the components are not the greatest, but they're not terrible either. I mean, these boats are really nice. The board is nice. It's a little portable game. So that is the components. Not too bad. Fairly good.
The rules for Hagoth, the builder of ships, is fairly easy. It's not a complicated game to play. You should be able to pick up and read the rules in about 3 to 5 minutes. What's important to note is the 2 actions versus the 1. And I don't think anybody's going to miss it, but that's the strategy sometimes of the game. So the rules are fine for what I think is it's Mayday, but for a lower tier game, I think they did a really good job.
So when the game is set up, you're going to put all the victory point markers here on 0, and the first one of 25 will win. So in a way, it's a race game. What will happen, everybody will be dealt 5 cards, and on your turn, you can do one of 2 things. You can either play 2 cards, or you can play 0 cards and take an action. The actions you can take, I think that'll be easiest to explain first. So the actions you can take without a card. Now remember, if you don't use a card, you don't get any new cards. Is you go wooding, which means you roll the dice and you take the number of wood you rolled. In this case, I would get 2 wood. Great. Or if you have these cards out, I can, let me try to, so let's say I had a couple cards out like this. So if I had the blueprint built a little bit, I could go ahead and put some wood on that. I could build 1 segment, so I can put 1 wood on it. And you have to have wood on it in order to build a ship. I'll show you how that works in a second, but just know I can first roll the die to get wood. That's the only action I can take, and everybody else will take their turn. Another possible action would be to take one of the wood I've already got. So remember how I got 2 wood. On my next turn, I could do that. Then that's the only thing I can do without playing a card, and go all the way around the board. Or if I had a ship out, I could just move him up 1. Now the way the board works, let me show this to you. Each size ship will be, you only have 2 of these at a time, depending on what type ship you built. I'll show you how to build a ship in a second. But you're moving up this. So this, if you had somebody here, it only takes 1 sailing to get there, but you only get 1 victory point. If you go here, you get 5 victory points, but 1, 2, 3, 4, or you're going to get 6 victory points, but you get 5. So let me be clear. This is the victory points you get when you build the ship. This is the victory points you get when you arrive. So this one, while short, only gives you 2 victory points. This one, while long, gives you 5 plus 6 is 11 victory points. Remember, you only need 25 to win. But this one will be much harder for you to build. So without playing a card, you can roll a die, take wood. You can place wood you already have onto blueprints you already have down, or just move your ship 1 space. Okay? The more interesting part of the game is that you can play 2 cards on your turn. So, some of the things you can do is you could just play by playing your cards down. So you have your blueprint cards, you just play them down in front of you. And what you are trying to do, and I'll just show you the simplest boat you can get. You're trying to get a boat like this. Let me get the board out of the way. So this would be a completed boat, which would be this first one. And there's other boats you can build that I've shown you that are more complicated. Okay, so that's one thing you do. You can go wooding, which is playing this card. Go wooding. So instead of it taking your whole action, like I showed you before, you can just play that card, because you're going to get to take 2 actions with cards, roll the die, and get the number of wood that was rolled. In this case, I rolled a 3. I would just take 3 wood. It would go in my personal supply. It does not go on the boat. Second thing I do is build a completed blueprint. So if my blueprint is finished, which it is, I can play a build card, and this number tells me how many wood I can place on it. In this case, 1. If I had played this one, I can roll the die and build whatever I want. If I had built this one, I could build 2. So if I played that one, I would put both that build on it. And then you have a piece of wood on each piece of the blueprint, and that shit would technically be finished. I can play a sail card. And if I play a sail card, I get to move this guy up 1 space. If he gets all the way to the top, I score the points, and he comes off the board. Another action I can do is I can attack an opponent. So there are some cards like this. Remove and discard any segment from an opponent's blueprint as long as no part of it has been built of wood. So I could steal somebody's blueprint and make them get rid of it. So there's some take that in the game. Another thing I can do is I can just play 1 card and discard another card. At the end of your turn, you're going to build up to 2. If at any point these have the required boat and wood on it, you would get rid of this, get rid of that, and bring a boat out here. Then you would score this victory point. So the game is fairly easy to play. There's not a whole lot of these take that cards. So there's something you don't like, which we don't. There's not a whole lot of it. But there is a whole lot of drawing to get the cards you want. And at some point, you just waste your action. Instead of taking 2 with the card, you just take the 1 and get what you want. But then you're not getting any new cards. So while that could possibly work for you, it's not going to be a long-term strategy because you need to get through that deck as quickly as possible. Because if you don't have the right blueprint cards, you're never going to get them by just taking a single action. So that's how Hagoth plays. First one to get their score up to 25 wins the game.
Who should buy this game? This game should be specifically purchased by Christians. Latter-day Saints will probably like this game. Anyone who might be wanting to play... It plays 4, but I primarily use it as a 2-player game. So if you're looking for a little quick 20 to 30 minute card game with components to play with your wife or your husband or your spouse, this could be it. Maybe use it as a church event. You know, if you had 4 people playing there and you wanted to bring out the character a little bit. I don't think this is a game that's going to knock your socks off. But two-player games, and I know this plays 4, but two-player games are tough in that regard, without getting into a lot of components. But it is neat how you have the little boat who scores you 1 victory point to build and 1 to sail, and it's quick to sail, versus the 5 and the 6, where the big one gives you 5 for building and 6 for getting there, but it takes you 5 sails to get there. A lot more cards that you're kind of pressing your luck you're going to get, but it's worth 11 times more points once you're all or a little over 5 times more points once it's completed. So is it better to keep doing those quick ones or do the big ones? Mind you, you can only have 2 ships at a time, so you're kind of limited. Maybe do a quickie, but it depends on what you draw and what you're hoping to get, and you may never get that card that you want, so be it. Otherwise, a fun little game, just I wouldn't play it too many times in a row. And I'm going to keep it based on the theme right now. So if the theme doesn't interest you, it might be a try.